we want to grow with our partners. And I call everybody our partners, whether it's our relative vendors, whether it's our clients. We're partners in a goal and a passion to get the job done and do it well. And I think my background, my history, and my energy that comes with it, I have been professing this, since I was a planner. Why can't we all get along? Why can't we all work together?
Hello, and welcome to today's version of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator. Our guest today, Jaime Theresa Smith, AKA Bionica. That's right, the Bionic Woman. That'll tell you everything you need to know about Jaime. She knows everything under the sun that there is to know about meeting planning. She has over 2 decades of experience in meeting planning and is going to share her insights and views on upcoming trends in all things event planning and event strategy. It's a fantastic conversation. We appreciate you joining us and listening in. You're going to be smarter for it. Well, hello and welcome to today's version of Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Dechtman, your host, the founder and president of the Keynote Curators, and your Keynote Curator. Today's guest is Jaime Smith. Jaime, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jaime, you and I have spoken about doing this, and in both of our preparation along the way, you have a good understanding that the majority of our listeners are meeting and event professionals, meeting planners, event planners, conference planners. We do also have listeners who are in production, audiovisual, and all sorts of vendors that have to deal with, that whole ecosystem. I think to start off, what would be worthwhile and valuable is that you give us a sense, take us kind of through your path and what led you to this moment now. I know you're the national account manager at Choice Live. Whenever I see Choice Live with the exclamation point, I want to say, Choice Live.
You can.
Okay, I just did. So, you're the national account manager for Choice Live, but really, how did you end up in event production? I know we only have 3 or 4 weeks for this podcast, but if you could reduce it down and give us your best version of what you want us to know about you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I have to tell you, my passion for all of your listeners, the industry as a whole, as you'll probably learn, exudes from me. And the journey that I have made and had over my adult career began with being a theater major at the University of Indianapolis and kind of fell into it by my major being the theater, but my minor being information systems. And so I was a tech wizard consultant, but ultimately stepped into business admin and kind of fell into the meetings industry. I started helping with our annual conference that was 300 people, helping with the signage and the vendor relations, and kind of grew over my 11 years, as I like to say, 11 years as a planner. But I was ultimately director of operations for that nonprofit and fell into the meetings industry, helping with that program that we grew to 1,500 people for a 3-day conference, and learned about MPI. So kind of in reverse, I learned about this organization that supports our industry, fell into it, loved it, knew I was going to get my CMP, knew I was going to continue growing. And I did. And I helped our community and our statewide association grow that conference. And it was my favorite part of my job. Though, of course, as many association individuals know, you're not wearing just one hat, you're wearing several hats. But I planned that annual conference, doing the logistics and partnering with several different individuals to help with the speakers, as we are here, right? And I knew from my background of being a theater major that I always wanted to be on stage. So the whole acting piece of it was my favorite, but I was really good at stage management, which correlates to meeting planning, in my opinion. Fast forward to, I started working with a production company for that conference, worked with them for 4 years as their client, and they stole me away. So as I like to say, they stole me to the dark side, and I began doing business development for them through up until the pandemic. The beginning of the pandemic, there was another opportunity that came along. Didn't know how things were going to evolve. So I took a chance and checked out Choice Live that was brought to me. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to make that switch to not only still do business development like I had been, but also doing the account management, getting more involved, and kind of going back to my roots of being that planner and helping the planners understand and having that correlation. So yes, I am national account manager, but I am, as I like to say, a recovering planner and still have that passion behind it.
Well, you still kind of get, not kind of, you still get to be involved with the production and the planning, strategy, messaging, because what Choice Live brings to the table is hand in glove, really part and parcel of, what's required. So what better account manager to have for what Choice Live does than somebody who in their DNA and in their whole experience has that meeting planning, that meeting professional sensibility about them.
Thank you. Yes, agreed.
Yeah. And Choice Live, you shared you arrived to them kind of around the pandemic, and all industries, Jaime, not just meeting planning. All industries have been disrupted, a lot of turbulence, a lot of chaos. And, the cliches in business, we hear thought leaders say, in a breakdown, there's a breakthrough. In chaos, there's opportunity. And that's all true. But when you're living through it, whether it's making a living or trying to keep your organization moving forward, and there's chaos and turbulence and disruption, it's often difficult to see the opportunity. I understand from your background and your experience, it's important to be able to collaborate and to, have that innovative, forward kind of thinking mindset where there's a continuation of constant learning and transforming and expanding capacities. What, in your experience, from your perspective of being the national account manager at Choice Live, a recovering meeting professional, have you seen from your viewpoint the trends are with keynote speakers at conferences, whether it's hybrid, virtual, back to live in person?
Yeah, I think, they're more immersed. The engagement you can get from having a speaker be more involved in the full production in the sense that they're there at the whole conference, right? I mean, this of course happened before the pandemic and I would see it from time to time, and I used to attend a lot of events and was around a lot of keynotes and speakers that would evolve in their progression of how they presented, that those that are there from the beginning to hear other people speak, to pull in some of the tidbits that they learn from others, to kind of tie it all together. I mean, I guess we kind of would look at that as an MC, but I think a lot of speakers that come in and relay or point out things that they learn from others is only elevating themselves, getting the rest of the community and the attendees involved and engaged in all of the content that's coming out there. I think that's huge for in person. I think it's great for virtual, and it's definitely something to consider whether you have one, two, or like a merger of them for a hybrid component, right? I think that's a good trend because we're all trying to find that engagement piece. How do we get people to be there? How do we get that's forever going to be the goal, right? And I think
Right.
being more innovative and creative and open to dialogue and conversations and meeting new people just to hear different perspectives is huge and key.
Right. And building on that at Choice Live, what I want to do is build on that innovation idea, that innovation mindset, that innovation culture, and the values at Choice Live. And, for a production and technology company, having that kind of mindset seems to me essential. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, we're not the only one, right? There's a lot of production companies very similar in mindsets like ours, which we actually tap into and lean on throughout the country to help offset, costs for our clients, to bring gear that's closer, to tap into labor. There are opportunities to be innovative and creative for the end result and the end client. I will say the culture of Choice Live is a huge component as to why I'm so grateful I made this switch. There's freedom in conversation and collaboration and the innovativeness that is the company even prior to the pandemic. I mean, we have some proprietary units that we developed as we saw there was a not necessarily a problem, but an opportunity to give
Right.
another solution for things that didn't seem to be working correctly, right? From some of our what we call easy LEDs or our V towers, ways in which to put the technology on a different platform that can withstand different elements, whether it's outside or inside. It's very forward thinking. And I think that our team takes a look at everything that we do, whether it's, working with a concert series or doing a PGA tour and having just an LED wall or doing a full annual convention with the big general session, the breakouts, all of those things. It's a matter of stepping back, seeing if it's truly what aligns with how we work and our culture with the right clients. I mean, we're not afraid to say, you know what?
This doesn't
this is
work.
not working. Let's step
Yeah.
back, you know? We wanna grow with our partners, and I call everybody our partners, whether it's our relative vendors, whether it's our clients. We're partners in a goal and a passion to get the job done and do it well, and I think my background, my history, and my energy that comes with it, I have been professing this, since I was a planner, Why can't we all get along? Why can't we all work
Right.
together? And I understand why in certain cases, yes, it's competitive, it's business, you've got to get the right tools in place, things of that nature. But in the end, aren't we trying to do the right thing for the right reason to get the right message out there to whatever it is? So I think with our team and the culture that's backing me, that's what we're doing. And we're doing it well, and we're taking that time to make sure that it's the right step in the right direction with the right team members and the right clients.
And again, I just can't, as I'm listening to you, the advantage, and I almost feel like your agent here. But the real distinction, the real advantage that you have is that you come from this meeting professional world. Your clients are meeting professionals. Many of them are. Some are festivals, or like you said, the LPGA, for example. But the skill set and the deployment of what you need to do and fulfill on is a lot the same for whether it's an annual convention for a conference or a corporation. When you have in mind ideas like budgeting,
Mhm.
and when you have an idea in mind like planning, so planning and budgeting for event production, coming from, again, your perch, your very unique perspective, what do you recommend for meeting planners in this moving landscape, in this new paradigm, which seems similar but is completely different?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always said, and I try to help them, if you can start at the end and work your way backwards. Of course, that's as a planning goal, that's how you work, right? That's how you start the conversation to figure out the scope of the plan to then budget it. I think the biggest key, and I know I may be stepping over, but I'm going to want to relay this piece is I know there's a budget constraint, right? Everybody wants to get back to 2019 numbers. We're not in 2019, right?
No, we're not.
Things cost, technology costs. I mean, I understand that, yes, it is technology is one of the bigger budgets. It used to be F&B, right? And in some cases it still is, depending upon the components and what you're trying to do.
Right.
But
And
you
where
need
it
to
is
see
and what they want to do. Yeah.
exactly. You need to see, you need to hear it. And if you want that ambiance, that visual component, that content that's coming out to enhance your messaging, to engage your audience to get it, right? To continue moving forward in whatever message you're getting out there or whatever networking opportunities you have to account for it. And I think there's a misstep in thinking that, oh, well, if we have a smaller audience, we don't need as much technology. Well, that's not always the case either. Oh, well, we're going to do some on virtual, or we're going to do some, in person, or whatever the scenario is. Going back to your question, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? Let's take a look at the big picture. Does it make sense here? Does it make sense with this? Let's talk through it. And I think that's the beauty of, like you said, from where I'm standing, what I came from, and what I see moving forward is step back, figure out what you're trying to do. And yeah, there might be some upsell, right? Like there might be, you have to go to your higher ups to ask for more money or to raise sponsorship opportunities, right? To offset some of the costs. That goes with anything, but don't discount it if you know that that's going to step it up in the right direction. I think it's just a matter of trying to figure out what you're trying to do, working with the right partners. I
Right.
mean, and having those conversations, the hard conversations. Okay, if we don't do this, how about we do it this way? You really don't need this piece. Let's get rid of it. Let's save money here and go to another element. It's looking at all of the variables. I mean, I remember being a planner and going to my AV provider and was like, can you just give me a cheat sheet, a check sheet of how much a microphone costs or this costs or whatever? And yes, in some cases, in house or an actual rental company, you can get that. Their numbers are what they are, and it is what it is. They're not going to budge. But when it comes to a production company or, any type of outsourced resource of an AV production company, it's all the variables that go in to make that. So if they own their own equipment, of course you can offset some of those costs because it's been paid for,
That's
or,
right.
you can bring in different elements labor's labor. Trucking is trucking. We know those costs are going up. So what can we do to offset that? And you can discount in a lot of ways. I mean, I was doing it with my previous company. I'm of course doing it now. I have a different inventory. We work with all LED. I mean, we started with LED, which I didn't have that opportunity for the longest time with my previous company. It was projection. Yes, in some cases, the cost can be different, but what are you trying to do with it? Where do you want that next step to be? I mean, again, going back to my IYI days, we did black drape and we hung the vinyl banners that were folded and looked a little wrinkled. And you did what you
Right.
did, but then you elevate the next
Yeah.
step. So
Yeah.
adding in, building up, and planning for the future or what you're trying to do and grow incrementally is smarter than, okay, let's go all in and then have to step back and go, you know what, that budget was more than we wanted. So next year, we're not going to do that. Okay, well, then next
Yeah.
year,
And
you're
and
not going to have that audience's experience elevated. And what's the point of going? I know that's
and
a
I
generic statement.
No, it's not actually. It really speaks to the heart of the matter. And I think Jaime, what you just underscored was it all comes down to, in the end, what is the experience of the attendee? But I know at Choice Live, you're very focused on what the experience of the attendee is, but also of the collaborators at Choice Live and the other extended family of vendors that you bring in. So when the focus is at the end of the day, when the focus is on the attendee and their experience, whether it's budget, the equipment, the signage, as you mentioned, food and beverage, what technology you're using, it all has to make sense if you're focused and looking to make sure that that experience of the attendee is optimized, whether it's the messaging that they're getting, or the takeaways that they're getting, or how it's going to move their business initiatives or the organization's initiatives forward. That's what's most important, I feel. And that's what I'm hearing from the commitment from you and Choice Live. In the post-pandemic world, Jaime, there's been a shift. There's been a shift in what importance of how to execute a meeting, the importance of the technology that's in use. But what the common thread and the through line in the script, if you will, has always been the attendee experience. Post-pandemic, kind of the rebound, the boomerang out of it. What are some of the changes and shifts and trends from a production and technology standpoint?
Yeah, I think, overall, the technology has been there. It kind of takes me back to when the pandemic hit and everybody's like, oh, we got to get to virtual. Virtual was there. We had that technology. It's a matter of
That's
utilizing
right.
it. Now, coming out of it, I think a lot of that, and again, generic statement, there's virtual for certain groups, there's hybrid for certain groups, and there's only in person for other groups, right?
That's
Finding
right.
out the avenue that meets the needs that you're trying to do and the goals that you're trying to achieve is ultimately the first step. Saying that, okay, budgets are going to be more if you're doing both. Okay, but massage it. Talk through what's really needed. Talk through the technology and the MCs or the keynotes or how it's all going to possibly come together so that you can make it work. It's a lot more work, of course, right? As far as the other pieces, right? CSR is coming back. And I know that's not technically technology, but I want to keep that in mind, just as accessibility and the talk around
That's
that and
right.
ensuring everybody, right? Like everybody's included. And yes, it's again more work, but it's something to ensure that everybody is included. And I think that is huge. And the technology is there to support it. Yes, there may be some hoops to jump over or some things to work on and learn in order to accommodate all of those things, but it's out there. So, when it comes to just the bare bones basics, or if you're trying to be forward thinking and innovative and meeting all of those needs, take it one step at a time, right? So, bite off a little, it's like that saying of the elephant, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Do the best
That's
you
right.
can. I mean, have the risk assessment, have those, all of the things that come into effect that you've been building up to, but don't forget about things. Don't forget about those people in the virtual. I mean, that was kind of my last year's song and dance of, okay, now that we're getting rid of virtual, or oh, it's going to be a virtual, don't put them back in the upper seats. Don't the nosebleed section, right? Like give
That's
them the
right.
experience that they need.
That's right. And there it is, the experience, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person, it all just comes down to that experience. And it sounds, again, cliche or general, but building on that theme of experience, what are your personal favorite ways and what are some of the trends or things you see just down the road as far as the best way to leverage technology to increase the attendee experience, to increase the attendee engagement, and enhance just the overall event?
Yeah, no, definitely. I love this, and I love the fact that there's opportunities everywhere, and it's a matter, like I was saying, it's a matter of kind of digging in, leaning on your providers to find out what's there, but from wayfinding to digital signage to, apps that enhance that engagement piece. I'm not sure if you're familiar, Seth, with Amp Slide, which was an actual engagement piece in person, and then during the pandemic, Xing Wang, who actually developed it, enhanced it. It has another component to it as well,
Well,
spark mode, but
share
it's
with our audience. I've seen it, but share with everybody, and wayfinding as well.
yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's another application, web-based application for people to be engaged, to get the content of the speaker, to, tweet it out, or and that may have just really dated me right there, but throw it out there on the socials in whatever format, or share with your
Social
team.
platforms, social
The
media
social
platforms.
right? Whichever ones, as however old this lasts, right? It's a way to email back to your coworkers or take notes on what the topic was within that specific slide. There's applications like that that I think help not only the in-person attendee experience, but also the virtual experience, because you're marrying the keynotes and their work, of course, with the technology that's happening, the AV provider that's getting it anyway, but then direct to the actual attendee. That's an application that's out there. The digital signage, of course, signage, right? Like I kind of mentioned that when I was a planner, we were doing, foam core or gator board, and going back to
That's
the
right.
CSR component of that, that's not sustainable. And I think with the digital signage, it not only helps you give a more of a pop wherever you are in the space, and you can change it, right? Because it's digital. You can, hey, the speaker is not coming and the topic has changed. Let's change this room out to whatever it is. Or wayfinding. I mean,
Right.
you'll find that in a lot of venues or convention centers where you can actually see where everything is laid out, whether it's the space itself or where the restrooms are, or, just more information. It's getting away from having the actual individuals standing in the hall guiding them, directing
Right.
them. Not to say that that
Right.
needs to go away, but giving people more information to see, right? It's hitting all of the neuro ways that people, learn differently, see differently.
Right.
I'm at fault. I'll tell you, I get off an airplane and I have to look 2 or 3 times to go, wait,
Yeah.
where am I? To get
Right.
configured again. And I think you can have that in a lot of cases in a convention center or in a hotel room to know, okay, where am I going? Unless you have that time to map it out right then and there. And everybody's fast paced now, right? So that's
Yeah.
some of the
Everybody behaves differently with all those different types of stimuli and where to go. And it's a new place, and the literal reading of the room and the kind of metaphorical reading of the room. Right.
exactly. It's a matter of constantly learning what's out there, what your attendees need, what your metrics are to enhance what you're doing, or move to a different opportunity, move to a different way of doing it, and being open to it. I guess is kind of my biggest point.
You can hear your passion. You can hear how you get lit up, and there's a spark, and you're touched, and you're moved, and you're inspired by this. How do you stay on top of what's current in industry trends, in your methodology for not only in the tech world, but you have to be aware of your current clients or future clients, kind of what that landscape looks like? How do you stay on top of that?
Obtain as much information as possible, right? The articles, the webinars, the newsletters, meeting people like you, connecting with your previous guests, right? Like it's all about the conversations, that I try to stay on top of. I ask the questions. I actually have a community, which, can definitely talk into a little bit later as well, that I developed.
Sure.
Not yeah, right. Like that came together during the pandemic, and it has grown, and we still meet every Thursday night. We've got a quote unquote newsletter that I'll make a note and I'll send out every Monday with points in the
Sure.
industry or things that I'm learning or things that people are connecting, whether it be resumes or individuals that are trying to get connected with our industry. But it is a group of us that have come together during this pandemic and grown. We hit all coasts. We actually had one up in Vancouver. I mean, we're everywhere. Of course, the core came from Indiana, just from our Indiana MPI chapter, but we've got
Right.
Ohioans and So we have this community that we tap into to ask those questions. And so, yes, I'm on the production side of it. And yes, I'm a salesperson. And yes, I'm working to meet the needs of my clients. But I also try to be a better resource and a curator of information to disseminate that to those that it might be useful for. I find that I'm more on the connector side, right? Like I love connecting
Yeah.
people or with resources, because not only does that elevate, I think in the end, it elevates who I am as a resource and people remember me, but it makes me feel good, right? Like I feel like I'm helping the industry in a small
Yeah.
little way of going, I found this out, or hey, what do you know about this? And I obtain that information. So to answer your question, absorbing it all, testing out the water, sharing with people, and of course, with my team members, learning from them and the technology that we've got coming in the door, the way that we're doing different shows from my other colleagues. LinkedIn, right? Like can't discount
Yeah.
that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
information there as well.
Lot of connection availability and possibilities there. Well, you can hear the fulfillment there, and even if it's outside the scope of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, your core focus, but that fulfillment is part of that generosity of who you are, and it really comes through. What's the most rewarding part of it for you? That what you do for your job?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that right there, the passion behind it. I mean, I got named Miss MPI Indiana at the beginning of the pandemic. We had our MPI Impress Awards, and
Do you
it
get a
was a
crown? Do you get some type of
yes,
crown for that?
I have a tiara and a sash, and it was funny during
Ah,
after this happened, of course, everybody on the board in our community, they all said, "Okay, you need to wear that at the next event." Fast forward to we didn't have the next event in person for the longest time. I ended up wearing the tiara at the Impress Awards last year, and everybody was like, "Wait, what?" Those that didn't know or didn't remember or didn't know me
right,
were like, "Why is there a lady wearing a tiara?" So I need to remember the
right. Why,
sash.
why is there somebody who's like playing a Disney princess over there? Could we have a security checkup on her, please?
That may have happened, but I own it, right? Like it's that excitement. That's probably the most rewarding job, right? It all ties together, and I have that ability to be on committees and connect with people in the ways that I always have. Of course, nurturing the clients that we have and developing new ones, but having a team to support me. I mean, I will say
Right.
my CEO and my direct leader it's a breath of fresh air to lean on him and work with him. And it makes me smile every day, and I'm always laughing. I mean, that's the fun of it, right? Like trying not
Yeah.
to get into the weeds of things that may go wrong or you have to deal with, obstacles that come up, but going, okay, let's take a break. Let's laugh through it because it'll be fine. Everything's gonna be fine.
That's right. That's right.
Yep.
And look, wearing a tiara and the sash falls under you only live once. I mean, come on. If I had an opportunity to put on a crown and some type of, king's robe or Mr. whatever, I would be in wardrobe and hair and makeup. Well, maybe makeup, not hair, but I would be in there full on, full on.
Yes, yes. It takes me back to here's another little side story for you. It takes me back to my Fair Queen days. I was Fair Queen runner up
Sure.
3 years in a row. Runner up. I never
Oh,
was Fair Queen, but I was Miss Congeniality 2 of those years. So I actually take more pride in the Miss Congeniality award than, but
yeah.
it's refreshing.
Well, it definitely shines through. Well, Jamie, I think that that's a good point for us to move into the beginning of the end of our time together here on this podcast. And I see this conversation continuing as we want to lean on you as not just a resource, but really a collaborator on what's happening in event production, event technology, and trends, and what we can look for on the horizon, and empower and inform and educate our community here of listeners and beyond, meeting professionals for how to best leverage that to make the experience as optimal as possible. That was me just kind of leaving the door open for a return visit. we're
Thank you.
we're, we're coming into the yeah, I look forward to it, see what we can discover our next time around. We're coming into the part, it's a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more whimsical here. We call it 20 questions. I don't think we've technically ever gotten to 20 questions. But the idea is that there's a series of questions. You give us your responses as short as possible, and we kind of rapid fire through that. So are you ready, Jaime Theresa?
Let's go.
All righty. What's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't learn from your resume?
I would say, I think I've already mentioned it, the connection piece of it, right? It's being a connector.
All
That's
righty.
not on my
What's
resume.
being the connector in the SS, the shit show? We can say that
Okay,
on this. You create.
I'm just gonna lean one way and show you. Can you see my
Okay.
shit show? This was from
There
one
it
of the
is.
shit show industry community members who got me the shit show. So I covered that earlier, but I wanted you to
It's
see that.
official.
So if anybody
It's official. It's official. So, what's the last movie you saw?
Wow, that's not quick to come up with. I don't watch a lot of movies apparently. I'm watching your
Okay.
series. Mrs.
All right.
Maisel's
What's the
most
last
recent
series that you watched?
Mrs. Maisel. I'm finishing out her final
Ah,
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
that's a really good one. And for theater people, you really get pulled in on the wardrobe and the soundtrack and the
Her
whole era,
cadence.
right?
I love how she speaks, the quickness.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what? It's actually a feature of it, really.
Yes.
How did you get your nickname Bionica?
So Jaime Smith, Jaime, I was named after
Ah,
the Bionic Woman, Jamie Summers, Lindsay Wagner's character. And when I was at an event, I was actually connecting with an individual, and I told them that story so that they could remember my name. And right then and there, they looked at me and they said, "Okay, now I'm going to forever call you Bionica." So
and there it is, the birth of the nickname. What's one of the most out of the box things you've done at an event?
I wish I had something that was like a wow factor, but I feel like everything that we do may be thought of as outside of the box thinking when the attendees come to it. But because of everything that we do to plan for it, I feel like it's a normal thing and you're just like making it happen. I have a bad habit of not being able to, maybe like the movie piece, right? Not being able to pull in that piece that's like, you know what, this was really cool. We should do this at every one because it's just an
Right.
evolution, kind of like everything else that we talked about earlier that we do. So,
That's right.
yeah,
And every event is unique. Every event is unique.
a non-answer for you. How's that?
No, I'm with you. Social
Yeah.
media, friend or foe?
Friend loosely. I'm
Friend
there.
loosely.
Yeah, I've pulled back
You're
quite a bit.
you're not alone on that.
Yeah. I miss the old
Some
days of
people have
social media.
answered friend or foe, acquaintance.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I will say,
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that LinkedIn, sorry, and quick and dirty. I never thought LinkedIn was really the social media. I always saw it as, and I still do. It is an opportunity to connect business wise. It's of
Yeah.
course
Straight
evolving, and
up.
people are posting things. And I don't like the algorithms of what you can and can't see, which actually that spans all of social media, in my opinion. But I do appreciate, reflecting back on things and pictures and posts that I've made. So loosely.
Favorite flavor ice cream?
Mint chocolate chip.
What's the last book you read?
Ooh, I'm in the middle of my niece has me on, I'm gonna forget the name of it. It's a series, and I can't remember the most recent one, but it's like a young adult book. So there's like
All
13 of
right.
them, and she's having me read them. So I'm in the middle of those. I read about 4 books at a time. I just finished the latest Bridgerton to try and get ready for the
Uh,
next Bridgerton show. So
right.
I'm kind of all over the place.
PC or Mac?
Ugh, I have a little bit of anger right now with this question and answer. I'm a PC girl. I'm an Android
All right, we
phone
can
girl.
talk that through too. As Ted Lasso says,
I am
count to
trying to
10,
embrace.
count to 10,
Take
and
a
if it
moment.
doesn't work, do it again.
Turn it off, turn it on. So I'm a PC girl, but I work for Choice Live, who is a Mac house. So the last 2 years,
Mm.
I have embraced a Mac computer. I struggle with it every other day now, but I'm an Android phone and I would like to say that will never change, but right now it's never going to change.
What's your favorite place you've traveled for work?
Oh, probably the one that hits me top of mind when that question's asked is Vancouver. It was for
Ah,
PCMA convening leaders several years back. waterfront, stayed at the West End, just the walk, even though it was in January, the drizzliness of it, but fresh air and just, I just really appreciated
Yeah.
all the elements of Vancouver.
I'm heading there in June. So any tips we can do that would be great.
You got it.
All righty. So here's the last one. In one of your blogs, you wrote laugh was your word of the year for 2022. Any
So,
idea what it'll be for this year?
okay, so I'm going to correct you there. So
Okay.
22, my word was actually pause, ironic enough, as you're learning from my
Ah.
nature and my quickness. Slow down, Smith, to speed up. That's what
Right.
my
As
boss said.
bionic as you are, you need to hit pause.
You have to hit pause. So pause was my 2022 word. This year it's laugh.
Gotcha.
Yes. So I am, and I'm not sure what 24 will be. I've had like flow in the past. I've had breathe in the past, but this year it kind of, I had a moment and I was like, what's my word going to be? And I thought about it. I actually threw it, speaking of social, I threw it on Facebook and had my community. And I had one of my MPI admin came back to me. She was like, it's got to be laugh. And I go, you know what? That's actually one of the top ones that I was thinking. So embracing the laugh, because that helps, right? You pause, you laugh through it. It gives you that pause to then handle everything that's coming your way.
Yeah, that encompasses. It's a great tool and
Yeah,
it's low tech.
right. I like low tech for a person who's in the technology industry. I like low tech.
Yeah, that it keeps it easy.
Yes.
So, Jaime, let's begin to say goodbye for our first recording, our first episode, our first podcast together. I just want to thank you for your willingness and your openness and your just being a yes. Your spirit is so open and a really beautiful energy, and your thoughts were really, thoughtful, and your answers were, you took your time to consider providing us with the best information possible. And that just speaks to who you are and your generosity. So thanks for being on the Keynote Curators podcast.
Thank you, more importantly, for having me. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful getting to know you and meeting you and your community. And very honored.
All righty. Well, great. Thank you. Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.